Welcome to Housing Developments.
I'm Jim Tobin.
And I'm Paul Lopez.
Paul, good morning.
Hey, man.
Good to see you back. Good to be back for this week's podcast. And before we get farther, let's introduce our special guest today.
Absolutely. Jessica Lynch.
Jessica Lynch.
Hello.
Vice President of Housing Finance. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's good. We're happy. You get a lot of news. So it seemed appropriate to have you on the podcast this week.
Yeah, it seems that every time we have a guest, it's because something big is It's never like a casual, welcome, come to our show.
Yeah.
No, it's like, no, we need to be on the show to talk about this. So welcome. So there's a couple of things you wanted to talk about, right, with us?
Yes.
So,
last week was a very busy week for housing regulators.
Absolutely. So let's talk about flood first. Is that something the issue that you want to talk about first?
Yeah. So the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, we use a lot of acronyms in housing finance.
Yeah, we do indeed.
So HUD released a final federal flood risk management standard that's going to require some elevation and flood proofing for FHA programs and HUD programs, HUD financed housing.
So so a couple things. One, this was an Obama era regulation, right?
It was.
And then what happened? Trump administration got rid of it, or changed it,
they put it on hold.
Okay.
And then this was a priority from day one from the Biden administration.
Right, and so we're back to the future. Right.
So the requirement for single family new construction in a 100-year floodplain, in order to get a mortgage loan that would be backed by FHA for single family, is that it would have to be built above 2 feet above base flood elevation in the 100-year floodplain. So it is in the 100-year floodplain. For the multifamily, they went further and created a new standard that is based on a complicated 3-tier approach.
Of course, it's
that is new climate-informed science approach maps. And so builders need to be aware, because these are final rules. And so as they're planning for the next couple of years, they need to understand that these new rules are going to be in effect.
So if we would ask the Biden administration, why did you put this in play, what would they say?
Well, they are focused on the climate change and the climate impacts on housing. And flood is obviously on everybody's mind because it's just so impactful on housing and can be expensive.
So go back to that it's 2 feet above base flood elevation?
For single family homes.
So who determines the base flood elevation? And then, so, I was thinking New Orleans, of course, they feel bad. They're always the poster child for flooding. But let's be honest, all our coastal areas, riverine areas, right? We don't talk a lot about that, but certainly Iowa's been through floods. North Dakota's been through floods.
Yep.
So base elevation is set by whom?
FEMA, for the Federal Emergency Management.
Okay, so FEMA sets base flood, and then local codes can say we want to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is not going to impact everybody the same.
Right. Okay.
Because there's some locals that are already above that.
Okay.
And some that aren't there yet. So, and again, that will be restricted to the 100-year floodplain.
Okay. And
whereas with the multifamily, it's a whole new process that they're going to have to go to determine if they actually need to do flood proofing measures.
Does FEMA work inside the 500-year floodplain? It seems like there's a chance that this sets some kind of new bar. I think you've already said that with how they're going to determine, inside the 500-year floodplain or whatever this new risk is for multifamily. Is there a slippery slope here where all of a sudden this is going to become the norm? Because right now it seems like when I think of flood regulations, it really concentrated that 100-year floodplain.
Yeah, well, this is new, but this right now is just HUD financed projects.
So if there's builders out there who build for the FHA space, right?
Right.
But there's plenty that don't. You don't know what financing a buyer is going to use when they come in to buy a home. So it seems like you're just gonna have to guess, because you don't have to build to this new standard if you don't want to, right? But you just won't be able to sell it to an FHA borrower.
Right, for the single family.
But
for multifamily, they use the HUD financing to do the development. So they would need to know in advance. This is just going to be something as part of their process that they're going to have to understand.
Sure.
It's kind of a new world that they've got to, if they want to use HUD financing, that this is just a new consideration that they're going to have to go through. And these both go into effect on January 1st.
Oh, all right. Right.
Yeah.
So do we have any kind of cost estimates, what it would cost? I mean, you said it's going to affect some areas, right? I get it. But do we have any data to say that this is going to add $10,000 for the cost of a single family home if you're building in.
Well, I think on the multifamily, it's harder to make that determination. We don't have any cost estimates on that. I don't think so. But on the single family side, that the builders said it's usually like $5,000 to $10,000 for 1 foot of base flood. So that's that'll be a
you're looking at $10,000 to $20,000 more for the cost of the house if you're not building above that.
Right.
And so you said January 1 this takes effect. Oh man! So what happens? What happens if you're building an FHA? Is it only going forward? What happens if you're in the middle of building an FHA multifamily property?
Oh, it would. Okay. I mean, if it's already underway.
Okay.
You'll have to understand as the end of the year approaches. You'll have to work with your lenders and HUD to figure out where you are in the process.
Gotcha.
So there's not a scenario where you've pulled the permit already. You're in the middle of construction, and all of a sudden there might be I don't want to say bait and switch, but kind of like all of a sudden changing of the rules where you thought that you were safe, but you weren't.
On the single family side, it was a little clearer that it wouldn't impact. It would impact after building permits
after the January 1st.
After January 1st. Whereas on the FHA side, we're trying to get more clarity.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
And try to get more clarity that we can. And HUD is also going to be doing some webinars and stuff, so we'll be submitting questions to them and trying to get some more clarity on some of these implementation issues.
Right. Yeah, and I think you made a good point. Like everyone thinks it's coastal, but it's not coastal. I mean, most of the flooding happens along the river basins,
That's right.
And along the river banks.
Yeah, I mean, I was just actually talking to some folks from Baton Rouge, and they talked about the floods. I think it was 2016. I can't remember exactly, but basically it's a rain cloud. A really big rain cloud parked over Baton Rouge, and they're upland, right? And flooded the city, right? Because in Houston had that same problem with that storm that kind of swirled around. It wasn't a hurricane, it wasn't anything like that. So
that's right.
We hear it's more often than you think. If you're in the middle of the country, you're not safe.
Like you said, Iowa, and certain places of Kansas City. I mean, certain areas of Kansas. I mean, there's places, especially if you're in flat ground,
right,
and where water accumulates. This could be,
that's right.
This could be very impactful, right?
That's right.
So that's one of two.
Yeah.
Two. The next one was a new final determination issued by HUD and the Department of Agriculture, USDA, and this has set up new minimum energy standards for homes, both apartment homes and single-family homes, financed by USDA and HUD. So to be clear, for HUD and USDA, this is going to impact single-family housing. In 18 months, the homes, in order to get financing from the USDA or FHA, single-family, they will be required to be built to the 2021 IECC, which is the International Energy Conservation Code. Yeah. And so that will be a requirement. Right now, there's only 6 states that are at that. Our builders who build in states that are not at that standard or have even in states where they have the 2021 code, but it was amended,
right,
and DOE has deemed it not to be equivalent to the 21 code, that they will have to change their business practices if they're planning to sell to buyers that use USDA or FHA financing. Wow. They'll have to build to the 2021 code.
And this is, sorry, go ahead.
So this, where this is the biggest concern is if you're an FHA buyer or if you're a home buyer and you're planning to use FHA financing, you've done everything right? Like you've gotten your credit score up, you've saved as much as you can for a down payment.
These are truly first-time home buyers, first-generation buyers, right?
Yeah.
The people that need that helping hand up into home ownership.
Yeah, and you're in Akron, Ohio, or Raleigh, North Carolina, or Henderson, Nevada, and you're like, I'm finally going to be able to buy that new home, and their lender's going to say, oh no, but you can't buy that home,
right?
Because that home, even though it's a good quality home, it's built to all the local building codes.
Right. It's already energy efficient.
It's already energy efficient.
Right.
You can't buy that because it's not built to the 2020 IECC. And so, and then the alternative is, you can't buy that house because it was built to the 2021, but now you're priced out of that market. And so now you're not going to, don't even look at those homes. You can't look at them because you can't afford them.
But the good news is that, let's say you're an FHA borrower and you can't buy one of these brand new homes, which again, by the way, if we remember, are the only game in town because no one's moving out of their existing homes.
Right.
So you can't buy that brand new 2024 home because it doesn't meet the 21 code. All right. But guess what? I've got a lovely home from 1984 that, yeah, sure, it's a little older, and don't get me wrong, you're going to use energy, but go ahead and do that, right? Are we
breezy?
Aren't we? Yeah, right. Aren't we incentivizing people moving into older homes that are less energy efficient than the homes we're building today?
Yeah, I mean, we have the this doesn't go into effect until towards the end of next year for single family, but it takes a lot longer than that to change codes at the local level. So This is really not going to be, the landscape's not going to be that much different than it is today.
Right.
And yes, it is disincentivizing people to buy new construction simply because of the kind of financing they're using. They're using the financing system to create a national energy code.
Right. Yeah, though that's exactly
what
right.
We're concerned about now is that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are also going to have to, or the VA and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are also going to be required by this administration to align with this new HUD and USDA regulation.
And at that point, game's over, right? That will hit what percent of the market in terms of homes?
Well, we know that about 90% of new construction homes are purchased by people using some sort of financing, whether it's conventional financing or the government program.
Right.
So
yeah, so FHA and USDA today. VA, potentially there's the next shoe that's going to drop. And for all of our friends and builders who are in states that aren't on the 21 code, that have military populations, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, right? I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to serve that population unless you build to the 21 code. But do you even have any inspectors that would know how to inspect a home at the 21 code if your state isn't on the 21 code, right? Aren't inspectors there?
Yeah.
Well,
there's always a lag, right?
Right.
There's a lag there.
The interesting thing in the final determination was that HUD and USDA are going to set it up where the builder would do a self-certification.
Oh.
And I don't know we don't know what the wording is going to be. We don't know what that will look like.
Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but let's play this out because this is absurd. I mean, this in my mind is once again a sop to the climate agenda folks who have no regard for affordability, right? They don't. It's climate or bust, and they are going to drive up the cost of housing in this country, both single and multifamily. Then you layer. Imagine if you have to build if you have to build a FHA home in a floodplain. You're now adding $10,000 to elevate it, and you've got to build to the 21 code, which I think we estimate is $20,000 or $30,000 more. In a lot of areas.
We hear from we've some of our HBAs have done studies that have pointed to that number, 30,000. We've talked to members themselves who are actually doing the building, and they're telling us that it could be depending on what code they're using now to get up to the 2021 unamended. It could be up to 30,000. We have studies from our home innovation. HUD has disputed those. They basically said they don't believe those numbers.
So we went through all the comment period on this thing, but they've ignored us, right? I mean, that's simply what it is, right? They've ignored us, and
it's not so much that they've ignored us; they just don't believe us.
Oh, well, that's better.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I feel much better now. That's excellent.
Well, regardless, this is a final ruling, right? So it's done. So,
but here we are, faceless. You can tell I'm fired up about this. Like faceless bureaucrats who have cherry picked studies that back up their own finding, and yet when they talk to the people who actually are going to build these homes, our members,
100%,
they're ignoring what we're telling them.
Yeah.
I was talking to a former chairman from the great state of Connecticut. Did I mention that UConn has won the national championship in the 6 times? Oh, the women have 12. Okay, never mind. $30,000. So exactly the number you quoted. They're building homes that are going to cost $30,000, which is unaffordable in any market. I don't care where you are, high cost state. It's unaffordable.
Right. And HUD and USDA, they are supposed to be those programs are supposed to be helping rural buyers, first-time home buyers, not pricing them out of the market, and that's basically what they've done.
It goes completely against their mandate, right? Which is to help as opposed to hinder.
Yeah, and I think it also ignores what I think the federal, so to speak, federated model of building codes in this country. There isn't a national building code, or national energy code. Well, maybe there is now, and clearly this is where they're headed. But what do you do if you're a state or a locality where your code cycles are legislatively mandated, right? We're going to do it every 6 years, we're going to be 4 years, and you're not on HUD cycle anymore. I believe that there are going to be areas in this country where there isn't going to be anybody who's going to use an FHA loan to buy a home, buy a new home. And so they're going to be forced into this old, right? There's a lot
of the confusion and everything.
That's right. That's right. I mean, West Virginia is still on the 09 code, right? I mean, and they can't afford in West Virginia to move to the 21 code just for FHA financing, right? It would be completely unaffordable.
Yeah. No, that's right.
It is. It will be. We've obviously been very involved, not my shop, but NHB has been very involved in the codes development process and working on that. It's very, very important to all of our builders. I mean, that it basically dictates what they do every single day.
Right.
And they work in their communities. They work with their code officials. They work, trying to figure out what is the best, most cost-effective way to make safe, decent, and affordable housing and energy-efficient housing too.
Right.
And so they will have... This is the way, though, of the federal government telling states and locals, thanks anyway, but this is really what you need to do. Because otherwise people can't buy homes. I mean, most people use some sort of federal financing.
Right.
It really opens the door for cash buyers, basically, to purchase the new homes. Because if you can't use a federally backed mortgage, and especially, again, if this goes all the way through to VA and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, I mean, it's...
Yeah, the Fannie and Freddie piece is terrifying.
Yeah.
That would essentially...
Because there's no relief valve there. I mean, that point, maybe I'm a buyer and I would wanting to use FHA because it has a low down payment, or maybe whatever, that product works better for me. But maybe I get, at least I can shift over and see if I can qualify for conventional financing. Right. But this just shuts the door completely.
Yeah.
And it really affects the health of the housing industry, right? Like, what could go wrong if the only people who are buying homes are all cash buyers? We know who those people are, right?
Yeah.
Vast majority of them are investment buyers. That means that the young couple can't get into a house. Those who want to move up can't get into a house because, they've got some equity, but they don't have enough equity to move up.
Right.
So you get that destabilization that we're back in 08, 09 again, right?
Yeah. No, it's just a sop to the climate community. And again, housing afford. What bothers me is that we on the pod we've been praising Joe Biden for going up to the State of the Union primetime address, and he not only just talks about housing inaffordability,
building our way out,
but he talks about building his way out. They talk about supply as the answer, and then they drop a $30,000 vig on the cost of a new home that's going to punish the people who need the help the most, and it drives me crazy. And I've said it many times. Great, we're going to save people $10 a month on their energy bill, but they're going to have to pay $30,000 for the cost of that house. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, especially since from what my understanding is that there's some parts of the 2021 IECC that have been amended out because their payback period is 90 or 100 years. I mean, that's not reasonable for home buyers. Right. And I do think that with this administration is they just have a different view of the world. I mean, they have said that, first of all, they don't agree with the numbers that we've come up with in terms of $30,000. They don't agree with those numbers.
Right.
They point to money that's available through the Inflation Reduction Act, which is different. I mean, those are based on different programs and different standards. Right. And then they also just say in markets that are heavily dependent on FHA financing, that builders are just going to do it. They're just going to figure it out because that will be in their best interest to do it.
I don't know if I buy that. That's a really big gamble to take with a big segment of the housing market, right? Especially at a moment where we're struggling to produce as many homes as we can because of labor and lots, right? Sure. And lot financing, right? All the headwinds. Then to layer this on to that final cost equation. It drives me crazy. It just, so in this administration, one of the other pillars of this administration is socioeconomic opportunity and parity, right? We believe that homeownership is the way to do that. It's the gateway to the middle class. Talked a lot about it. So it seems like the very people that they're trying to help, that first generational home buyer, or first time or renters who just you're getting a leg up to get their own place.
That's right.
That's who they're punishing.
Sure.
For the sake of the climate agenda, and it's just anyway.
Yeah, and I do want to mention also about the multifamily because
go hit on that
because I do feel like it's a double whammy for builders who are trying to use HUD financing. Yeah. To be clear, on the multifamily piece, the USDA multifamily is not part of that, but for HUD for HUD FHA financing, it's pretty important. It's a product that a lot of our builders use to try to create mid-size, affordable rental properties, and they're going to hit by a double whammy because even in states like Washington, where they're like, okay, well, fine, we're already up to this minimum energy standard, and so we'll just have to, we're already dealing with it. Well, now they also have to think of, well, wait a minute, that project that I was planning, you need to now go back and look at that and say, is that something doable based on the new federal flood risk management standard?
Right.
So it's a double whammy for the multifamily.
So I guess my question is it over? Are we done? Or is there something that we as either the industry or the public can do about it?
Well, for the HUD and the USDA rules that I was just describing, they are final. So at this point, we need to start planning for them. But we do need to impress upon the administration not to have VA or Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac follow down this path. I mean, it just would be really, really disruptive to the housing market.
Right.
And also, and there is still time to prevent that.
Right.
And we have our legislative conference because Congress is going to have to be the counterbalance.
Right.
To this administration. And so we have our legislative conference coming up. We want builders to come.
Sure.
This will be talking with my counterparts, Lake Colson and Heather Borman, and Scott Meyer. This is going to be a very big focus.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
For
June 12th. So if you're not signed up, get on.
Yes.
If we haven't beaten that drum enough.
Well, things that happen, if they're happening in D.C. that are not going to impact me at the state and local level, well, they will.
Yeah. The 44 states. And Puerto Rico, I believe, I know we have to double check whether Puerto Rico's up to the 21 code, but 44 states, as well as Puerto Rico, are not up to the 21 code. In the worst case scenario, and I like to play the worst case scenario, in 18 months, you're not going to be able to sell a new home with FHA financing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unless you scramble and do what the government wants you to do. And so that we need everybody here to talk about it, talk to your legislators back home.
And let's be clear, because I think sometimes, we wear, people put a black hat on us or what have you. Yeah. We're not anti-codes.
Right.
You're not.
Right. No, we're anti-energy efficient.
Right.
They already build very energy efficient homes.
That's right. It's common sense codes. It's codes that actually provide a service to the people who are buying it, as opposed to, let's face it, a lot of these are superfluous.
Yeah, to borrow a legal term that our friend Tom Ward will use, arbitrary and capricious. It just they ignored the marketplace, but more importantly, they ignored the builders in this, and that's what drives me crazy. That there's and they're completely unapologetic about it.
Yeah.
That's what's infuriating, I think. But we're not, we're Jessica talked about the legislative conference. I think that's one piece, but also a comprehensive strategy. We're looking at legal strategies on this. Yep. We're looking at preventing other regulations, like you said, in VA or with Fannie and Freddie. But a comprehensive strategy where we're gonna push back on this. This does not help NHB's mission of providing safe, decent, affordable housing opportunities for everyone.
That's right.
This is the opposite. This is punishing, especially that first generation home buyer.
And once again, it's going to be all hands on deck for NHB.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, builders need to tell their side of the story.
That's right. So
Jessica, thank you so much for being our guest this week.
It's
been kind of fun.
Very much.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Good stuff.
Be here.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to talk about?
No, that was a lot. That was a heavier of the podcast. I don't know, but we are looking forward to legislative conference.
That's right.
But I do think you have some news coming out of the public affairs shop. Let's talk about our 10 points.
Yeah, no, and this is certainly not just a comm shop. This, Jessica and her team, everybody in advocacy really worked on this. But, you talked about it earlier, right? The Biden administration came out and not only Biden, President Biden said we have to build more homes, right? So that brought up a lot of attention to us, and people were asking us like, okay, great, what's the need? What do we need to be doing? So on and so forth. So rather than piecemeal everything that we've already done and been doing, we created a document, and I'm going to put it up there slowly, and hopefully the lights. So this is basically what we're calling a 10-point plan. And essentially what this is one place, you guys, everyone can go to nhb.org/plan to take a look at it. But it's basically what we feel needs to be done, not just at the federal level, but at the federal, state, and local levels to make sure that housing remains the backbone of the American dream.
That's right. That's right.
So this is something that will be available for download. This is something that we'll be putting in the hands of the legislators once we go to LegCon in June.
Right.
So I think it gives a nice clarity not only to our members and to legislators, but also to the media and the public. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's okay. Well, what, right? I mean, people ask all the time, well, what does that mean? That's a great handy tool, and it's simple, and it allows all of our builders and our executive officers, when they use it, they can then expound on it, right? They can use their experience to say why this is, whether it's workforce or whether it's financing or.
That's right. It's the start of the conversation. So thanks to Jessica and everybody else in advocacy. Again, we're a team, right? So everything that we do together. So I think it's going to be a great product.
That's good. Now, how do you find it again? nhb.org/plan. /plan. Yeah. Download it now. Yeah. Awesome. Excellent. Well, until next time.
I know, right? First of all, let me make sure that we give a big thanks to our sponsor.
That's right.
LG Pro Builder.
Yep. Let's build the good life together.
That's right. 100%. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you. Yep.
So until next time, man. Thank you.
I'm Jim Tobin.
I'm Paul Lopez.